we just cool. Everything is fine up until the night Big got murdered.
What did you see that?
That was Gene, Biggie's bodyguard, looking back on the moments leading up to the rapper's tragic passing. And now people are saying there's more to his story than anyone ever revealed. Something hidden in Biggie's underground tunnels just resurfaced, and the truth is way more wild than expected. Check this out, the Empire's hidden vaults. Let me break it down with real talk. What happened after the Notorious B.I.G. left this world wasn't just some cold case or forgotten industry tension. This situation runs deeper and feels way more calculated than folks ever imagined.
I said, yo, Puff, I got some intel, bro. He said, what's up, Gene? I said, I got some intel that people gonna come and try to kill us.
Because when Christopher Wallace, known everywhere as Biggie Smalls, lost his life that night in LA back in March '97, he didn't just leave behind awards and a heartbroken city, he left behind a full-blown empire. And empires don't disappear, they get handed down, fought over, and sometimes flipped into cash in ways that could make even the hardest hustler uncomfortable.
He said, Gene, I don't wanna hear that shit. I don't wanna hear that shit, Gene. I said, you don't wanna hear that shit. F what you mean you don't wanna hear that shit? He said, yo, Gene, you ain't gotta go if you don't wanna go.
Valletta had been holding Biggie's legacy down for nearly 30 years, but everything shifted fast when she left this world on February 21st, 2025 at 78 inside her place in Pennsylvania. But here's where things start looking real questionable, and the vibe turns straight shady in a corporate kind of way. Just days before her final moments, Valletta approved a major deal with Primary Wave Music, a move that flipped Biggie's whole empire on its head.
So the 23 people that came in with us, it was only 12 of us leaving. Oh no, 11 of us leaving.
23, 11 leave.
Yeah.
12 stayed.
11 stayed. 12 had already went to Steve Styles' house.
Got it.
This agreement, valued at around $200 million, handed Primary Wave a 50% stake in Biggie's publishing, his masters, and even control over his name, image, and likeness. The news hit the streets loud, and the reactions were split. Some folks cheered the massive payout, while others felt like half of Biggie's spirit just got handed to big business.
Primary Wave acquires Biggie's Notorious B.I.G., requires his catalog and other rights. Valletta Wallace, not Valletta Davis, Valletta Wallace, his mother, before she passed away, she made the deal, $200 million deal. You know, I hate to see a legacy like that end the way it ended, but I mean, death, there's no happy ending to death. You know, death should never be a means to a happy ending.
Barely 4 months after the Primary Wave deal wrapped up, things flipped again. On July 2nd, 2025, a sealed lawsuit hit the New York Supreme Court, filed by Valletta's estate and aimed straight at Faith Evans, Biggie's former partner and C.J. Wallace's mother. The claims were intense, accusing Faith of serious mishandling of Notorious B.I.G. LLC, the company that held all of Biggie's catalog rights. And according to the filing,
this guy from the Nation of Islam that had a blue suit, white shirt, blue bow tie, come walking down the block. When he gets to I had peeked right there. When he gets to the third or second car, I just come out. And I've come out, at this time when we outside, I have my gun up under my shirt and I just lowered it. He looks me in the eye, I look him in the eye. He don't say nothing. He don't say a thing. He just turns around and walks back down the street.
Faith allegedly snatched full control of the LLC right after Valletta passed, skipped proper estate procedures, and kept the estate's 50% share of the Primary Wave payout, possibly worth tens of millions, and it didn't stop there. The 45-page complaint painted a picture that felt like straight betrayal, saying Faith rerouted money through side companies, froze out Valletta's trustees, and even tried to shut down the LLC so all the power would land in her hands. That's a bold move. This is someone who married Biggie in '94, raised their child, and even worked on music honoring him, now being accused of blocking her own son's future earnings.
Now, Valletta carried on Biggie's legacy after his tragic death, overseeing his estate and helping pass down his wealth to his family, including his daughter, Tiana Wallace. Now, she did a pretty good job, his mother, of running things too. Biggie's estate was estimated to be worth about $10 million when he died, and it's since been ballooned up to a staggering estimated 160 million.
The suit also claimed she hired her personal lawyer to negotiate extra deals with Primary Wave, including endorsements tied to a Faith-branded perfume line using Biggie's face without telling anyone else who had ownership in the estate. The roots of this whole situation stretch way back to '97, when Biggie passed and left behind an estate valued at about $10 million, a number that sounded big but was actually light for an artist who had just dropped Ready to Die and was about to release Life After. And with all the chaos happening in the East Coast-West Coast tension, nothing about that moment was simple. That's when Voletta Wallace, early 50s, retired preschool teacher, proud Jamaican heritage, stepped in with serious Mama Lion energy. She wasn't just trying to stack cash. She was protecting her son's humanity, his legacy, and the voice he carried in the culture. She launched the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation in 1997, pushing scholarships for young creatives in music and the arts, inspired by Biggie's own goals found in his notebooks. But Voletta wasn't out here playing a grieving parent role. She moved like a sharp business mind who knew Biggie's empire had to grow with the times. She handled licensing deals for films, merch collabs with brands like Nike and Timberland, and fought hard against anyone trying to use Biggie's image without permission. And when streaming exploded in the 2010s, she made sure Biggie's estate stayed in the mix and got paid correctly. Voletta moved fast with the times, making sure Biggie's catalog kept bringing in steady royalties that climbed from low 7 figures into the 8-figure range every year. The transformation she pulled off was legendary, turning a modest starting fund into a powerhouse operation any street-smart entrepreneur would respect. By 2024, the estate's value had soared past $160 million, a massive jump from where things stood in '97. And that didn't happen by luck. It came from Voletta's hands-on grind, bringing in managers she trusted like Wayne Barrow, a longtime Bad Boy Records insider who understood the industry, and teaming up with lawyers to structure everything through Notorious B.I.G. LLC, which she co-owned with Faith Evans. But here's where we gotta look at what was happening behind the scenes in those metaphorical underground tunnels of power, money, and control. Because while Voletta was building this empire piece by piece, other people were waiting on the sidelines, watching for the moment her firm leadership would finally ease up, and that moment arrived in February 2025 when she spent her final days in a Pennsylvania hospice. The deal wrapped up on March 20th, 2025, barely a month after Voletta passed, and just 4 months later, that sealed lawsuit dropped, claiming Faith took control of the LLC the moment Voletta was gone. This isn't just a family disagreement over money. It feels like a chain of calculated moves, almost like certain people were positioning themselves long before the transition happened, ready to step in the second the matriarch's grip loosened. And once you start tugging on that thread, who knew what and when, the whole structure around Biggie's legacy starts to look shaky in ways that hit hard for anyone who truly valued his art. Because here's the thought that really unsettles people. If Faith Evans, the mother of Biggie's child, could allegedly make moves that cut out Voletta's estate from its rightful role, then what else might have been happening behind those closed doors? What other private agreements were made while everyone was grieving? And even more unsettling, who already knew about Voletta's fading health and was preparing to benefit the moment she was gone? By 2025, it wasn't just about who controlled Biggie's money or his masters anymore. It was about who controlled his voice, his image, his whole presence, and that's where things turned straight dystopian for the culture. In March 2025, only weeks after Voletta passed, executor Wayne Barrow announced a full audit of Biggie's storage units out in Teaneck, New Jersey, a quiet warehouse holding gems from the late 90s, and what they found wasn't just trophies or old plaques. They uncovered 47 unmarked reel-to-reel tapes, scribbled in Biggie's handwriting with titles like LA 96 Sessions, Brooklyn Freestyles, A Baller 3, and the wildest one, For Faith. Don't release. Imagine that Biggie straight up writing don't release on a tape meant for Faith. Whatever was on it is still a mystery, but the label alone shows Biggie already sensed back in '96 that people might one day dig through his archives trying to cash in. But it gets even more twisted. They also found a pristine 2-inch master containing the original Life After blueprint, a 28-track version totally different from the 24-track project the world ended up hearing. This earlier layout included 4 missing cuts, a raw collab with Jay-Z called Throne Wars, a soulful joint named Mother Shadow produced by Lord Finesse, an alternate Victory remix with Nas and Busta jumping in, and a deep closer titled Eulogy for a King, where Biggie shared reflective thoughts over a looping Nina Simone piano riff. The leaks started creeping out fast, first tiny snippets on SoundCloud, then full tracks popping up on underground forums. the estate reacted quick and approved selective releases under Primary Wave's banner, dropping a project titled Hustle and Dreams. The lead piece was a 4-minute, 22-second freestyle over a Pete Rock beat, and it exploded, pulling in 50 million streams on Spotify in its first week. But here's where things got messy. Critics noticed the track had subtle tuning to smooth out tape issues, and even AI-generated ad-libs filling the empty spaces. Let that sink in. AI stepping in to create new Biggie reactions, basically putting fresh lines into his voice using tech. That's wild! CJ Wallace, Biggie's son, defended the move in a Rolling Stone op-ed saying, "Dad's bars are timeless, but tech lets us hear him in rooms he never entered." But yo, is that what the culture really wants? Do we want Biggie's voice showing up in places he never touched? Or are we building a digital puppet, a machine-made version of a legend performing for us long after the real man is gone? That question hit people hard. It opened up a whole uncomfortable convo about how we treat icons who aren't here to speak for themselves in this new tech era, and the whole hood started buzzing about it. By summer 2025, these remixes were everywhere. Radio, playlists, DJ sets, turning Biggie's catalog into a playground for modern producers trying to get a spotlight. And then came the big tease. During Record Store Day's Black Friday lineup, they previewed a 12-inch Big Papa So So Def remix, signaling that even more reimagined Biggie tracks were on the way. Jermaine Dupri's 95 classic got rebooted with Atlanta trap snaps and a fresh verse from Gunna, and YouTube went wild with fan edits and mashups. Even Fortnite reportedly tried to jump in with a hypnotized-style rhythm track for Chapter 6, complete with an emote of Biggie's iconic crown pose. But that idea got scrapped after the estate pushed back over likeness rights. But here's where things take a seriously unsettling turn. While this whole digital revival was happening, while Primary Wave was using AI to build what-if duets of Biggie trading lines with Eminem, something way more suspect was unfolding behind the scenes in June and July 2025. A few YouTube channels, like Celeb Unraveled, started posting videos claiming that estate searches uncovered wiped drives and erased reels that supposedly hid Biggie's private thoughts about Diddy, along with talk of secret royalty issues. They even suggested the data wipes were done with high-level tech meant to hide money moves. Most of these claims were later broken down and debunked by fact-checkers from Snopes and Reuters, calling them mashups of old street gossip mixed with fresh speculation. But one piece of evidence actually held up. A cassette from Biggie's 97 Lexus got fully authenticated and sold at Sotheby's for $250,000 in August. It held a freestyle over Mentoom's Juicy Fruit with commentary that seemed to throw shade at unnamed executives. And that raises real questions. Who were these suits? Why did this tape pass authentication when so many others didn't? And the biggest question, who walked away with that $250,000 profit? Somebody managed to cash out on a cassette from Biggie's old ride, got it verified through channels nobody can fully explain, and flipped it for $250,000, and we're supposed to think that's random? No way! But the most unsettling twist came from publicist Jonathan Hay, who filed a June complaint saying estate managers blocked his access to key demos during the audit, including a rumored Biggie and Puff fallout track called Bad Boy Blues. Hay even claimed he got pressured by Wayne Barrow's team, echoing industry whispers about heavy gatekeeping, especially while Diddy was dealing with his own legal storm that had already shaken the whole music world. And speaking of Diddy, we gotta talk about the giant shadow hovering over all of this. While Biggie's estate drama was unfolding, Sean Diddy Combs was facing a major reckoning, one that cast a heavy cloud over everything connected to that era. Back in March 2024, federal agents searched Diddy's Los Angeles and Miami homes, tied to allegations of long-running misconduct and organized exploitation dating back to the late 2000s. By September 2024, Diddy was taken into custody and faced multiple federal charges. And here's the wild part. On July 2nd, 2025, the same exact day Faith Evans got hit with that lawsuit from Valletta's estate, Diddy was found guilty on 4 misconduct-related counts and received a 52-month federal sentence. July 2nd, 2025, the same exact day Faith Evans got sued for allegedly mishandling Biggie's estate, Diddy was convicted on multiple misconduct-related charges. Coincidence? Maybe. But once you start tracing the connections between Bad Boy Records, Primary Wave, Faith Evans, and Valletta's estate, that coincidence starts looking more like quiet coordination and some heavy behind-the-scenes moves. Here's what's confirmed. Diddy held a 50% stake in Bad Boy's masters up until the 2025 Primary Wave sale, a catalog that reportedly generated tens of millions yearly for its heirs. But after Diddy's assets were locked down during his legal situation, those payouts suddenly faced major complications. That's when CJ Wallace stepped forward. In June 2025, he publicly cut ties in an Instagram post saying, "My father's light isn't dimmed by shadows," and redirected bad boy-related earnings toward organizations supporting survivors of exploitation. That move wasn't just symbolic. It showed CJ understood the serious layers of corruption orbiting his father's legacy, and he refused to carry that weight. But distancing himself from Diddy opened up an even tougher question, one the streets have whispered for years. What exactly was Puff's role in the events of March 9th, 1997, the night Biggie's life came to an end? What we're stepping into now isn't wild guessing, fam. It's a trail of actions, money moves, and statements that paint a picture so unsettling it shakes everything people thought they knew about Biggie's passing and the empire that rose afterward. And the July 2025 court filings took things to a whole new level. On July 8th, an anonymous John Doe filed a complaint in Los Angeles Superior Court accusing Diddy of a 2016 incident that allegedly happened at his Hollywood Hills mansion. But what grabbed everybody's attention wasn't just the accusation itself. It was the detail that during this reported outburst, Diddy supposedly took a vintage Biggie t-shirt from a memorabilia closet, a shirt featuring early Biggie artwork, and treated it in a deeply disrespectful and inappropriate way while allegedly trying to intimidate the plaintiff. The filing described the shirt as a sacred relic, saying it was mishandled in a moment of extreme anger, disrespecting Biggie's memory in a way that left fans stunned. Now pause and think about that for a second. If this allegation holds up, and that's still an open legal question, we're not just talking about someone mismanaging a legacy for profit anymore. We're talking about someone who allegedly disrespected Biggie's personal history in a truly disturbing display of control. Just a few days later, on July 11th, another filing dropped, this time pulling Biggie's son, CJ Wallace, then 27, into the conversation as an unwitting participant in a 2020 situation at the Revolt TV offices. The complaint claims CJ, believing he was helping someone with potential production work, drove the accuser to the building in a company SUV, where Diddy and associates allegedly pressured the individual in a career-threatening way. CJ shut the claims down instantly through his legal team, calling the story pure fiction meant to exploit his father's name and drag him into drama he had nothing to do with. But here's the disturbing part. Whether CJ was aware or not, willing or misled, the allegation suggested Biggie's own son was being used as a tool to bring people into Diddy's orbit. That idea alone had folks shaken. Think about the level of emotional manipulation it would take to even attempt something like that. And think about what it means if the son of a man Diddy was long rumored to have failed to protect, or at minimum didn't safeguard properly, was now being pulled into claims tied to Diddy's later controversies. That's a cold, calculated setup if any of it turns out true. And now, once we loop this back to Gene Deal's testimony about the night Biggie lost his life, the parallels start feeling way too eerie. Gene, who served as Diddy's bodyguard that night, described a chain of events that suggested something far more complex than a random street attack. In the days leading up to the incident, Gene said he got several warnings about dangers aimed at the bad boy crew. Warnings he brought straight to the top, only to be brushed off like they didn't matter. Imagine that for a second, fam. A trained bodyguard, someone whose whole job is protecting Diddy and the artist, comes forward with serious concerns, and the response he gets is irritation and a cold line that changed everything. Go if you don't want to go. What kind of reaction is that? Who hears a real warning and just shrugs it off unless they already think they know how the night is supposed to unfold? Gene's testimony laid out even more unsettling details that had the whole community buzzing. He explained that at the Peterson Museum, the crew walked in 23 deep, but only 11 people rolled out with the group afterward. The other 12 had already peeled off to Steve Stout's spot, leaving the security team split at the worst possible time. But the detail that shook people the most came from what Gene described next, a mysterious individual who appeared right before everything went sideways. This person showed up out of nowhere, moved strangely, and seemed to be watching the crew in a way that didn't feel random at all. Gene said the vibe was off immediately, like this person wasn't just some bystander, but someone with a purpose. Gene said a man dressed in a blue suit and bow tie, looking like he was connected to the Nation of Islam, walked up to the cars, locked eyes with him, then quietly turned and walked away. Minutes later, Biggie lost his life, and that moment has haunted people ever since. Was this man a spotter? Was he confirming who was in which ride? And the biggest question, Who sent him? If Gene's account is accurate and someone knew Biggie's location, exact timing, and even which vehicle he'd be riding in, then this wasn't some random street moment. This was a calculated setup with disturbing precision. That kind of operation doesn't happen without inside knowledge. And here's the detail that shook everyone. Gene said that right before the incident, another security member named Paul told him to switch cars, pulling him away from the position that would have put him closest to Biggie's vehicle. When Gene questioned it, Paul reportedly threatened to fire him from Bad Boy, choosing company loyalty over artist safety at a moment when everyone already felt tension in the air. That's a grimy situation, fam, and when you look at the whole pattern, it's hard to ignore. Whether it's what happened that night, the long string of accusations over the years, or the messy battles happening over Biggie's estate today, we keep seeing the same tactics pop up again and again. Isolation of key people, pressure on the ones who speak up, threats to careers, and heavy consequences for anyone who doesn't fall in line. As Faith Evans and Valletta's estate fight it out in court over major cash and AI-generated versions of Biggie's voice start flooding playlists and club sets worldwide, we gotta pause and ask, what are we really celebrating when we talk about Biggie's legacy? Are we honoring the man or just squeezing his name for profit? C.J. Wallace revealed in a September Vanity Fair profile that the estate funded new scientific tests on old ballistics files, trying to trace the materials used in the attack that took his father's life. The analysis reportedly connected the original rounds back to an LAPD evidence locker issue from 1996. Yeah, let that sit for a second. The same LAPD dealing with corruption scandals back then, with certain officers rumored to have strange financial jumps right after the tragedy. That's the kind of messy behind-the-scenes drama you'd expect in a movie, not real life. We're looking at a case that may have involved corrupt officials, music industry power players, street connections, and a whole maze of financial motives we're still trying to understand almost 3 decades later. And the people who might hold all the answers, Diddy, Faith Evans, and others from the inner circle, are either wrapped in legal trouble or tangled in money disputes. Meanwhile, the LAPD's cold case review team announced in August 2025 that they were putting $2 million toward new DNA testing on evidence preserved since '97. But when Chief Jim McDonald gave an update on October 15th, it was lukewarm. Talk of leads, but nothing close to action. Translation, they know more than they're sharing, but moving forward could shake up too many powerful circles. Maybe the truth points at people with influence. Maybe certain deadlines in the justice system limit what can be pursued now. Or maybe, like Detective Russell Poole once said, we had the pieces. Politics hid the puzzle. Because let's be real, the system was never designed to bring full justice for someone like Biggie. It was designed to protect the ones holding the power. Thank you for watching. If you rocked with this breakdown, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and I'll catch you in the next one.